Welcome to episode 53 of the Creative Train podcast. In this episode, I'm going to dig into the question of why are artists so weird? We do tend to see the differences in people long before we allow any sense of sameness or similarity to become how we see and feel the world. And I think that notion of otherness is what makes artists seem so weird, that they are other than most people. But I think if you were to ask a random cross-section of anybody in your town, ask them why are artists so weird, they'd all have some sort of real-life or anecdotal story that they could tell you. And I have a few thoughts on this, why this is, why artists are weird, and if you are an artist, sit tight for a few minutes of, we'll have a good laugh at ourselves. All aboard? Every group, clique, or social construct seems to have a pretty wide range of personalities. Although you might be part of a team or in a classroom or just one of a few employees, you can probably think for a few seconds and be able to point out the ones that you think are a bit weird. And what makes them weird to you? Is it the clothes they wear, or maybe they have a weird sense of humor? Do they have strange mannerisms? Or are they just awkward? Or genuinely a person with some deeper issues that you don't understand? Whatever it is, I'm sure it only took a few seconds to have the full diagnosis in your mind and be ready to spill it. I think in terms of what makes people think that artists are weird is the fact that we kind of are. We spend most of our waking hours thinking outside of those boxes that things like our day jobs and other mundane routines force us into. Yes, there are things that need to be done, and sometimes it's a very graceless and uninspiring methodology that gets them done the fastest and the most accurately. This is not necessarily where a creative thinker will thrive. In fact, we usually hate those repetitive tasks. But it's a situation where a creative thinker can bring new perspective into that methodology and maybe make it more efficient or more effective or at least somewhat more interesting to do. And this is not to say that it will be an artist per se that will invigorate this process, but it will be someone who dares to think outside of the box, one who's gained enough experience to know what must be done and make that mesh somehow with making it more interesting, making the job part of it more interesting for the worker. I hate being called a worker. Even somebody who's completely unaware of the established processes and routines and methods can bring new and interesting things to the table. Have you heard of Rick Rubin? If not, the short story is that he's not a musician, not particularly musical at all, apparently. But he has been the lead producer on loads of super successful albums for some of the music industry's biggest stars. And how could that possibly happen? I think what he does is he attempts to marry the vibe that the artists are looking for with the technology and the people operating that technology. And that's pretty ballsy. Like, you're not going to go into a high-end pro Michelin star restaurant or something and start telling them what to do because you have a vibe in mind. Music is a different thing, though. So what I think happens is that instead of speaking in terms of like templates and trends and formulas and formulae and putting things into established and acceptable boxes, what Rick Rubin, I think what he does is he brings an outsider's perspective where he might speak in metaphor about the sounds and overall vibe that they want to achieve. I really don't know, though. I've never been in on one of his sessions, but I've read a bunch about him and I've listened to him speak about these things, and I often really dig what he has to say. I do have a bit of trouble believing that he's non-musical, though, or not musically gifted. Like, after being around musicians and working in the industry for that long, I kind of doubt he's fully transparent on that one. So these outside voices, no, not the voices in your head, or maybe it is. These voices are what open the door to fresh ideas when we find that our groove has become a rut. Say that back to yourself. Our groove has become a rut. That was a really big realization for me to have. And I can say from this artist's perspective anyway, that being unique, inventive, and original is the foremost goal I have in my mind during any design phase, straight through to the finishing touches put on any of my creations, whether it's music or glass. But as for glass art, for example, there's thousands of books of patterns out there, some aimed at the beginner level and others much higher. And there are tons of websites with patterns as well. And of course, there are those who literally steal other people's designs without any compensation, notification, or credit given to the original artist. Ugh. And unfortunately, this is kind of to be expected in this day of online self-promotion, where we eagerly seek fellowship with our fellow creatives by sharing photos and audio clips of our pieces on social media and other places, only to see other people either copy the design or sound and share it to the same groups, or they might share it to other groups that you don't belong in, and you'll have somebody tell you that they did it. And they outright share the photos and stuff as if it was their own work. I've seen it and I've heard it. I'm sure you have too. But thankfully, there are vigilant and observant members of the groups that usually call out these folks, and the photos are eventually removed. But for the artist, and in that group, I will include songwriters, poets, chefs and painters, sculptors, jewelers, clothing designers, whatever, and all other people like that into this statement. We have a really tough time sometimes keeping our minds and hearts focused on our ultimate goal of bringing some beauty into this world through the lens of our own skills and lived experience using our hands and our voices. Being exposed to those copycat folks, it can push us into many dark places in our minds to the point where we not only question our validity or identity as artists, but why we make any effort at all when someone is either just going to find a way to take our work for free and copy it or pass it off as their own. So enter the weirdo mindset, as some would call it, where thinking far outside these boxes must become our normal way of doing things. We conjure up images and sounds that challenge not only our own creativity, while outright refusing to submit to the notion that a successful artist has to sell stuff to be considered successful. Van Gogh died broke. Think of that. This leads to fusions of media and form and technique and statements of ourselves that challenge and confuse some, but still bring delight to others because of our differentness. There's a good word, eh? Differentness. These pieces leave the lasting impression and possess the vibe factor that will long outlive the variations on countless themes that are so pervasive in so many artistic and creative fields. Again, this is where I differentiate between the artist and the creator. It's about motivation and intent. Are you seeking to put your stamp, your voice, your vibe out there bravely and without apology? Or are you looking to just sell stuff that you know works, but might leave you possibly feeling like just one of many of fish in the sea, to use that expression? There is a time and place for both. I wholeheartedly endorse both sides of that. But when it comes to the original question of why are artists so weird, I believe it's because we have to constantly reshape our view of the world, our notion of originality and our place in the world of art and creativity. And eventually this brings us to developing the mindset of stalwart determination to be unique and often / almost to the point of revulsion at the normalness that we find ourselves surrounded by. And this is not speaking from a point of arrogance or some elevated place where I'm trying to speak from. It's a self-preservation mindset as well that may, in some cases, build walls around us. But those walls are also a shelter behind which we can and do retreat in those moments of self-doubt or when we're stricken with that imposter syndrome. Some never, ever question their motives of originality versus conformity. But I will bet you anything that your favorite artists are the ones who have set themselves apart from the crowd and maybe have become a source of inspiration for you to have the bravery and confidence to do the same, to cultivate and embrace your own truly unique spirit. Am I right? No, really, I am right. Sometimes it takes an artist decades to come to the fullest realization of exactly who they are as an artist, a bringer of beauty, one who can inspire by doing their thing, one who might bring someone to tears and another one to gut-deep laughter in the same moment. For me, as a musician, songwriter, performer, I went through many iterations of who I thought I was. I tried the sort of pseudo-impersonation of my early music heroes in my teens and early 20s. And then when I found the next new inspiration, I sought to do that thing. And then when the next wave hit, I worked tirelessly at trying to do that next thing. All the while, I was honing my technique and skill, but not really finding my own unique expression in that. Does that make sense? I became an excellent parrot, one who could repeat and quote and imitate a lot of musical things, but none of it was really unique to me. I was no prodigy, but I did hit above my weight, so to speak. So I embraced the attention and I learned how to use it to my advantage. But when the small town musician moves to a bigger town, they quickly realize they are no longer the big fish. And this is what I call the muskie in a teacup syndrome. If you don't know what a muskie is, it's short for muskellunge. It's a somewhat local fish to the freshwater area where I am in Ontario, Canada. The muskie is big, it's mean, and it's ugly. And every fisherman wants to fight one, but they're not good eats. They fight well, but that's about all you get from a muskie. And this plays into the analogy of a tempest in a teacup or a big fish in a small pond, but more so to the notion that in a tiny situation, we might be the big thing. But outside of that small situation, we might not really be that unique or special at all. And I don't say that to kill your buzz, because there are countless folks out there who are also trying to be noticed in your particular medium. You've probably doom-scrolled reels on social media and left that session totally disheartened or feeling small and insignificant, right? Because you didn't think of those things first? Well, you don't know where they got those ideas from either. So the whole idea behind the creation of Creative Train is to find ways to bring you to your own personal realizations that because you are a truly unique person, you have the ability and perspective that nobody else in the world has. Yes, there will be overlap and similarities between what you and others do, and that's to be expected within any given medium. But I did it. I found myself. Many others have too. And I'm hoping that you are next. And you would probably not be listening to this at all, and certainly not this far into the episode, if this message wasn't resonating with you. The big question is, how do you come to that point of realizing your creative voice? What is your motivation? Why do you do this to yourself? And finally, what is your vibe factor? What do you bring to the world? What do you want to give to the world? What's your highest aspiration as a creative? What are you going to do? For me, it's channeling my inner weirdo and giving it the time, the space, and the credence to take every notion and inspiration that I have and put it to the test of whether or not it meets the vibe factor of what I want to put out there. In short, I try everything. It may be a fairy-themed glass creation, or a doomy, gloomy, dark country song, a fiery Asian hot pot, or simply rearranging the houseplants because I want to do it. But I want every single person who experiences anything I do to walk away knowing in their mind and heart that they just experienced something they've never experienced before. It doesn't have to be big. It has to be different. It has to be me. It has to be you. It takes bravery. It takes confidence. It absolutely requires an effort attitude toward the standards and the norms, but it takes you to step up and declare with all of your heart that you're willing to be seen as the weird artsy in your friends group or at work, or even just the guy or gal walking down the street. Be that person. Don't wonder what it would be like to be that person. Don't wonder about it. Be that person. Do it. Be it. Live your life as if it depended on your creative authenticity. Because in no small way, it actually does. There's your pep talk. Now go get to work. So are you feeling inspired? Are you feeling weird? Are you feeling like indulging that weird little voice in the back of your head that makes you think about things that you thought might be too strange to bring out into the world? That weird image, that weird song, that strange sculpture, or that multimedia creation? You have to do it. When you look around you and you see the normal, how can you not want to just try to be a little bit weird? And you'll have every excuse in the world, because once people know you're an artist, they'll go, oh, they're an artist. They're a bit weird. Welcome to the club.